Hello, my name is Dan Lima. I am the OSU Ag and Natural Resources Educator in Belmont County, Ohio, and I'm here to talk about getting started in management intensive grazing systems. So, when we talk about getting started with management intensive grazing, we're already kind of jumping ahead as far as what type of grazing that we're looking at. In any kind of grazing system that you're thinking about or any operation, it's always good to evaluate your resources and then set goals for yourself to make sure that you achieve those goals and that you're headed in the right direction. One of the things specifically for management intensive grazing or any kind of grazing that we're talking about here is thinking about, in this case, what do I have? What do I need? But more specifically, land. Do I have the land capable of sustaining animals? Think about the species that you want. There's going to be a difference in having sheep, having goat, and having cattle. As far as forages, what kind of forages do you have? Do you have adequate fencing for the animals that you want? Is there water? We'll talk about water further, but water is going to be the most important resource out of anything that you can have to make sure that you can sustain the animals. Buildings. Is buildings even necessary? Do you have the equipment? Is that going to be a fixed cost? Is that going to be a variable cost? And again, the livestock and the labor. Do you have the time to put in to achieve the goal that you want? Really, it's going to take a lot of foresight to make sure that you get to where you want to go and you do it in a proper manner without having too much headache or potentially losing a lot of money. So think about this. Why are you doing this? Do you want to have it as a hobby? Is this going to be a business venture? Um, is it fun to have a hobby? But yeah, maybe you want some money. You want to make some money, and and that could just be an interest that you have. Working from home, maybe you admire these animals and you want to work more with them. But just think about how much it's going to cost you, and if you have the potential to make money and a profit off of it. Also, who's going to help? Now, chances are, if you are starting a management intensive grazing operation or any kind of grazing operation, it's going to be at home. So, is your family supportive of this? Or is it one of those things that, maybe your wife is not very happy and or your husband? But I guess my point being is they're going to be involved with it, especially if it's at home. Do you have time? And more importantly, what are you giving up to be able to do this? Are you taking up their time? Are you taking up family time that you want to be able to go on vacations? Depending on how you want to do it, you might not be able to do all that kind of stuff. So just think about where you're headed to before these issues pop up. Also, think about the startup costs. Um, what are the financial resources that you have available? Have you spoken to the 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 uh, the banks to get a loan, ag lenders? Have you spoken to maybe some government programs that NRCS might help you with? Are there things that you can offset the start cost? What are going to be so? Think about again the interest again. Is it going to be profitable? Is there a market for what you're doing? I mean, are you doing a specific breed? Are you looking for a certification? Um, if you do sheep and goats, there might be specific groups that you market to. So think about all this stuff. And will it work on your farm, wherever you are, and is it going to inhibit the lifestyle that you want? I know we're kind of repeating a lot of these things, but it's just really good to understand where you're headed and how to get there. So more on the liquid cash side of things. Do you have the cash? Can you buy the land up front? Do you need to buy equipment? Um, is that land good enough? Lime, fertilizer, fence, buildings, and will you have to borrow until the revenue starts coming in? Can you get by with the loss for so much time before you have to maybe give up on that potential dream of yours? Think about these things, have goals, and progress cautiously, and keep good records. You're not going to be able to measure progress unless you have something to measure. So keeping records is one of those tricks, very easy thing to do. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and it's going to be very important for the long-term goals. If you don't have records, like I said, you can't see the progress you're making. So let's get to a little bit more technical side of things. After you've thought about all this stuff, and it's a very philosophical way to look at it, as far as the type of life that you want to lead and the type of um, lifestyle that you want to have. Um, Now we're looking into some resources as far as some technical things that you have to have. Number of acres. So, do you have the land for grazing? Do you have enough land that maybe you want to bale hay from and produce your own hay? Do you even want to buy? Do you even want to produce your own hay, or do you want to buy it? Um, there's a lot of economics there as far as the fertility management, as far as feeding costs. Think about these things. Check the prices of hay, check the prices of fertilizer, check the prices of having all this equipment. Maybe baling hay is not something that you would like to do, and it doesn't work with the budget that you set for yourself. Maybe you just want to buy hay when you need it and try to extend the grazing season as long as possible. Do you have enough acreage for that? Do you have enough pasture land? Just think about the woodlands. Are you going to have to convert some woodland into pasture? What goes into that? And lastly, soil fertility. Is that soil able to produce the amount of forage needed to sustain what you want to do? Evaluating resources and forages. This is going to be more specific to forages. What type of species of forages do I have? And then when we talk about this, I know everybody wants to identify every single type of forage that's there, but you really have to understand what are your predominant forages, what are their behaviors. Um, by knowing what's predominantly there, that's really going to dictate how you're going to manage that type of forage. What is the condition of your pasture land? Do you have a lot of weeds in there? Do you have a lot of brush? Do you need to control those? Are you looking at a biological control or a mechanical control? Think about these things. Goats are going to be good for helping remove brush, but so can mechanical controls with tractors and brush hogs. That might be enough. Um, does the density of the grass cover? Is it homogeneous through your entire pasture field? Does it cover everything? Is it broken up? All that's going to be important in evaluating how much you have in terms of forage. How many animals can you feed off of the growth rate that you have? Are there going to be times when you're going to have faster growth rates than others? Absolutely. And you need to make sure you understand that. Um, do you understand the indicators of good and poor soil fertility? Can you just see that? Are you able to tackle those problems? Do you need to tackle them right away? Think about that. The forages are going to be what is feeding your livestock so that they convert. The forages are going to convert to solar energy, to chemical energy. That chemical energy is going to fatten up your livestock, and then that fat livestock will hopefully fatten up your wallets. It starts with the forage, but that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is water. We're at a farm down here in southeast Ohio, and what you're looking at here is a calving pasture. This is stockpiled grass. Right now we're kind of in the mid-fall. This is going to be utilized in the March. So one of the things that you need to know is how much cattle can I put here, and how much is this field going to be utilized. One of the things that you can do is you look at the forage species here. This is mainly a fescue pasture, and you can see some clover in it as well. Right now it's growing. It'll grow until we hit a pretty harsh winter. Once the temperatures start to get to freezing, it'll kind of stall out. But that's when this forage is going to keep and maintain its level throughout winter, where you can really put some calves on it and save some money. So at this point, if we use our pasture stick here, these are just inches. We'll put it down here in the forage, and we can see we got about maybe 4 inches of forage, which could translate typically about 200 pounds of dry matter per inch. So when we're looking at this, we have 20 acres and we have about 800 pounds of forage to the acre. Before we get to water, let's talk about fencing. Is there a fence around the pasture? Um, what kind of perimeter fence is on the property? What condition is it in? And is it conducive to your plans? Think about what type of livestock the fence was designed for. Will it hold your animals? Are you trying to put cattle in a field that was holding sheep before? Um, you need to make sure that you can actually utilize the fence that's there, or if it's not there at all, where do you need the fence and what kind of fence do you need? Is it going to affect the startup of your business, and if so, for how long?
Fencing can be a major issue when you're trying to figure out how to start up an operation and start management intensive grazing. What type of fence is there? Do you need to put in new fence? What type of fence do you need to keep in your livestock? Those are all real big issues to make. But typically speaking, some of the cheapest fence to build that can last a long time is going to be electric fence. Then once you start moving up the cost ladder, it could be high tensile fence next, then maybe barbed wire, or vice versa. Then woven wire becomes more expensive, and typically wooden fence is the most expensive. And when you're building fence, what type of post are you going to use? Typically, many of us use these purchase posts, these treated posts. The problem is over the past several years they've gotten very expensive. They can probably be $12 a piece. Then there is the metal post. These metal posts typically run about $4 to $5. One of the downsides with these is people think they don't last a long time. I have some here on my farm that's 30 years old and they're starting to wear out now, and I'm having to replace them. But the one thing I like about metal posts is if you have an emergency and you need to get up some fence fast, these posts work very, very well. Then there's all other types of posts out there. This one here is a recycled plastic post that you can drive staples right into. There's a lot of different posts out there. The issue is how long do they last? This was supposed to be a lifetime post, and the company's no longer in business. I wonder why. And then probably what most of my farm's made up of is locust posts. I cut these right off the farm. I have some here curing now that we'll start setting here probably over the winter months, and they work. I mean, they can last a long time. There are some that if they're diseased, they won't last as long. But the one post that'll last longer than all the rest is Osage orange, or the hedge apple. If you use a post like that, there's some on this farm that's 150 years old.
So finally, we get to water. Water is going to be one of the most important resource that you have. Do you have ponds? What's the size? What's the depth? What's the quality of that water? Streams. What's the width? What's the depth again? Does it run all year? What's the quality of that water? Do you have a riparian buffer? Are the banks eroding? Is that something that you're going to have to fix? Do you have springs? Where are they located? Are they seasonal year round? How are you going to design the fencing around the water? Because if you don't have water, your animals aren't going to gain any weight. There's no way to pasture without water accessibility. Can water be developed in multiple paddocks? To do management intensive grazing, you do need multiple paddocks. And by having multiple paddocks, you need to make sure that every paddock has water. Are you going to be bringing water to certain paddocks? Is there water available? Do you have the engineering and the creativity to build fences around your water sources so that you can maximize your water, maximize paddocks, maximize your forages? Are you going to need buildings? Um, do you have type of buildings? Are they structurally sound? Are they going to be safe? Um, can you refurbish a building, readapt a building? For example, was it an old dairy that had a milk house? Can you make it into something else? If you have a pole barn, uh, are you going to store things in this pole barn? Can you do can you utilize the buildings that you have and increase the quality and the capacity of your program? What do you need to do? Can you then bring in some handling facilities? Are you going to need more equipment? Can you put the handling facilities where an old building was, like in the picture? Do you want the chute to be inside or outside? If you're going to be working the animals, the environment doesn't always work with you. So, is that building in good enough condition for that long-term management as far as the chute goes, as far as handling facilities? Um, can you combine buildings and facility structures so that you have a nice operation? Is that something that you want to do? Just think about all these things, and that a lot of that is going to be the startup costs, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute here. Um, but before that, and kind of leading up to that, you're really going to have to figure out what species livestock do you want, um, or is all that forage good enough for the system that you want? And what are going to be the challenges in implementing that management intensive grazing if you've never done it? Can you lay out some temporary fencing, utilize multiple paddocks, have that water there, have enough forage, have enough animals, have the right species, have the right fence to accommodate the species? It really takes a lot of foresight, again, to really maximize your operation and get you to where you want to go. Evaluating resources, labor management. So, what are the labor and management requirements? How much time do you have? Um, Having certain kind of machinery, is that going to save you time? Is that really beneficial? Um, do the numbers work out in your favor, and how long will it take for them to work out? Just and how much do I need to be on site? If this is a hobby or if this is something part time, am I going to be able to do both my bread and butter job and maybe make a little extra money, have this hobby, have this part time venture on the side? Am I going to be able to do this? And do I have the right um, machinery to do it? Is there machinery that's going to give me more time so that I am able to do certain things that I want to do? And again, with every type of new operation, you're going to have fixed costs and you're going to have variable costs. Um, with cost, with animal gains, with with this kind of operation, with management intensive grazing, having animals, having to do the work to make it work for you, you're going to have to maintain records. And Ohio State Extension does have some great resources for you. Um, Figure out exactly what the fixed operating costs are going to be. Think about the variable expenses. Um, Things like, do you have to reseed a field? How often do you have to do that? Fertilizer, vet bills, hired labor. Can you do everything yourself? Or are there going to be certain times, such as calving season, whatever it is, um, when you need, or when you're working the animals, when you're vaccinating? Do you need more labor? Do you need to hire somebody? Um, yeah, yeah. Those are the things that aren't going to be there all the time. Fuel, utilities, equipment repair, and having a record of all those expenses will help you balance a budget in the proper way so that you are successful. Um, Costs of expenses incurred regardless of production level. So what this is saying is um, owners operate. Owners, labor, and management charge, farm insurance, taxes, depreciation, lease costs. There are certain things that are going to be fixed, but maybe not steady. Um, did you account for something like that?